Thank you so much, everybody, for being here on a Monday evening, and thank you to everybody who's read. It's just been amazing, and Ghazal for putting this book out in the world. So this book started a good few years ago as a long poem in French and English that just started being in my head in the mornings when I woke up. So I started taking it down and following it to see where it would go. So the first section that I'm going to read from this is from a long poem called Dollop, which is in French and English, and it's got mirror sections, so every part comes back around in the other language. So je réfléchis, I reflect. Il est bien plus tard qu'avant, il me semble, où subsistent encore les échos qui hantaient la ligne. Dans le vert corps, les accords se perdent. Je lis parce que c'est la seule chose que je sais faire, que j'essaie de faire. On m'a vu dans le vert corps sauter l'élastique. Histoire d'où? En tant que trace, je reste, je subsiste, je demeure, je persiste. En tant que trace, I should have known better. Le vent qui ne nous portera plus laisse penser qu'il nous parle. Ces paroles nous soufflent à l'oreille sans pour autant laisser une seule trace de sens. Qu'est-ce que cela signifie? It seems much later than before. Where do the echoes that haunted the line survive? In the Vercors agreements, chords get lost. I read because it's the only thing I know how to do, try to do. I was seen in the Vercors, green body, bungee jumping, sweet story of where. As a trace I stay, I survive, I remain, I persist. As a trace, j'aurais dû mieux savoir. The wind that will no longer carry us lets us think it's talking to us. Its words whisper in our ear without managing to leave a single trace of meaning. What does that even mean? Une différence est que cet espace n'est pas construite, mais improvisé de l'imprévu déconstruit. Il y a un rythme qui m'échappe, clé à cette forme abstraite qui m'enfuit, fuit. C'est peu à dire, a femelle dire, rayé comme une goutte de soleil d'or. Comment ça marche? How does that walk? One difference is that this space is not built but improvised from the deconstructed, unexpected. There's a rhythm that escapes, key to this abstract shape, ape that flees, sees. It's not much to say, a female say, striped like a drop of golden sun. How does that walk? Comment ça marche? La fragilité du mot fragile même, sa propre friabilité. Je réfléchis, je reflète, comme l'eau, ces phénomènes. The fragility of the word fragile itself, its own friability. I reflect like water, these phenomena. Les appels n'ont plus de distance de nos jours, dit-on, mais dans mon expérience, ce n'est pas le cas. Tes paroles me joignent de l'autre bout du monde, incrustées du résidu sonore d'une distance extrême. Disons que ce soit le cas. Case by case, we review evidence for the prosecution. Both assume the defense position makes it all but impossible to slide these blocks of grievance through the channels installed to process them craftily. Our case stalls, ground to a halt on its own neat corners. Stalls are for horses, really, not even our cross purposes, angry, tramped on dolphins. It's this kind of nouning that's got us where we are, wherever that is, and really, we should stop. Calls no longer have distance nowadays, they say, but in my experience, that's not the case. Your words reach me from the other end of the world, encrusted with the sonic residue of extreme distance. Let's say that's the case. Cas par cas, on met en examen les preuves à charge. On prend tous les deux le rôle de poursuivant, ce qui rend vachement impossible l'acte de glisser ces blocs de réclamation à travers les canaux installés pour les transformer en vaches qui rient. Notre cas se cale dans un impasse construit de ses propres coins carrés. Les stalles sont pour les chevaux, à vrai dire, même pas nos boîtes de malentendus, Ce genre d'adjectiver nous a mal servi en quoi que ce soit, et il est bien temps qu'on en arrête. Disons que ces chevaux qui naissent de l'homophonie de Stal et Calais nous permettent. Disons que ces chevaux nous permettent, que ces cheveux émettent extrême flamme, rubis et compagnie, que la fumée résiduelle de cet acte de roussir fait surgir, rougir, colorier en lustre de feu en tout cas, au cas où. Rubber half erased, a concrete case for sleeping with the fishes in, maintaining his hand-holding. Je maintiens que ces heures qui tuent passeront enfin, mais peut-on vraiment dire que le temps passe? Après tout, où passe-t-il? Il en reste du temps quand même. Il en reste bien trop. Qu'en fera-t-on et où? Let's say that these horses born of the homophony of stall and stalling permit us. Let's say that these horses permit, that this hair emits extreme flame, ruby and co, that the residual smoke of this act of reddening surges, blushes, colours in a fiery glow in any case, just in case. Gomme à moitié effacée, qu'est-ce en béton dans lequel dormir avec les poissons? Maintenir veut dire se tenir la main. I maintain that these hours that kill would pass at last, but can we really say that time passes? After all, where does it pass on to? There's some time left all the same, there's always too much left. What to do with it and where? Hold hands and jump. All the years and no one heard. Immunity from prosecution. Ces autres sont des tisanes proprement dit. Liberté, égalité et compagnie. J'ai du mal à prononcer la troisième partie. Frangin masculin de l'éternité, du café, et que pour les mecs quoi, pas moi. Une bonne cuillerée de merde dans la soupe composée de langues superposées et autres. Utterly bereft, lying and lying in the rift between mendacious layers, saying dollop and whatnot. Se tenir la main et sauter. Toutes ces années, personne n'a entendu, détendu, défendu de poursuite. Those other teas are herbal remedies, rightly told. Liberty, equality and co. I've trouble pronouncing the third part, masculine sibling of eternity, or coffee, but just for the lads, you know, not me. A good dollop of shit in the soup made up of overlapping languages and whatnot. Véritablement démuni, couché montant dans la fosse entre couches monteuses, à se dire cuillerée, quoi que ce soit. So the next couple of parts that I'm going to read are from the second section of the book, which is called A Cloud of Eyes. And this was supposed to be a continuation of the first part, but it turned into something, different during lockdown, when I spent most of my time walking around, as I think a lot of people did. And it has bits and pieces from the first section in it, but it's mostly haunted by something that just really became clear to me when I was chatting with Finbar, a friend from home who's lived in Toronto for a long time, and we were talking about home and here, and we agreed that you can't be anonymous at home, and you can't be anonymous at home when there's 5 people who live in your neighbourhood. Everybody knows what you're doing, and I didn't quite realise that that's where this came out of, but I think that's where this came out of. What you haven't in your hand you can't hold is a line of my granddad's. All of this maintenance is nothing but that gesture, trying to hold up and hold together what can't be held in your hand or hands or arms. Holding is tiring, especially holding up, and tiring, extending indefinitely in time, is angering. I know there are words to use at times like these to transform the sense of strain and extension into something approaching magic. Words that shake the kaleidoscope and unsettle scarlet and emerald paillettes to form a dazzling fractal mirage, a place that time will make for us if we can just keep up the tiring and the holding up. I close my eyes and a river of flame red hair shakes itself out on the inner lid. Clustering in the corners, elongated spiders spin between the glints of jewel bright light. Something feathered is pulsing in the shadows of the concrete case, the one poured out for holding space. Herbal tea and puns are things that can break a day into manageable chunks, like a family-sized chocolate bar. After a morning of hefting broken things and rat-eaten paper into the skip, I sit under the small sycamore tree, sipping elderflower tea and watching clouds furl and fill up. By the time they're ready to rain, I'll be done. The book I'm reading tells me of its own reading of another poet, advising writing people to trust our own obsessions. When the rain stops, I'll go for a walk up the hill towards the folly. The dog will be reluctant on the road, but activated to full ear and tail up glory in the woods. We'll stand under beech and precariously propped pine, with me looking up at the canopy and the buzzards beyond, and her snootling in the mulch. How does that walk? That walks in slightly wonky circles, like those made by a small child learning to trace the letter O. Existential there would have us believe there is a pattern here, and existential there can't be wrong in this case, given that all it takes to make a pattern is someone or some or other verbal structure to believe that they are seeing one. I comply with that dummy pronoun's wishes more often than not. I'm not even a pattern-seeking creature as such. Rather, they seek me out, drawing my eye into their web of connections. I don't make or do mental images. There's no map of my journey through the world imprinting and updating itself in my mind. When I close my eyes, what I see is determined by the splodges and darting tadpoles pulsing on the inner surface of my eyelids. There is always a shape there of some sort, stretching a trace of tendril towards what I'm moving through, and have moved through that day. The image is on the surface of the world, and my light tattooed eyelids and I find ourselves walking along and through it, most often in the woods. There are rifts between layers. We suture them through walking. To swallow. To belong. It won't be long until this pacing is taken for a message, and this man without torso mistaken for a no one. To take control of the story takes words, takes accomplices, takes sound right out of other mouths to turn them into non-speech. To undertake, to make a story of the not words of others spill joyfully into the yawning opening of a well of artificial silence made by mistake. To understand takes standing in English, but taking in French. It's harder to pace away to understand in a language that situates and stills the act so hard. To stand still long enough to become a red thing in the landscape, a feature made for mapping, takes patient silence and a reader. To lean over the shoulder of another as they tap and circle, to drink their action in as image, to imagine a soundless, gateless world of silent circles. To learn the changing contours of this world from the circling of its maker, without ever asking what a gate is, or if it could be made of silence. To swallow someone's babbling movement, to spit back out as moving pictures, soundtracked with random babble flow, swallowed whole. Swallowing. Plunging down the sky's neckline, tying one on for Brother Earth before taking leave, leaving ground behind in greens and browns, making for the grey and blue beyond. Taking off so fast a blank spot is left hanging in the bereft air like a corpse's tape marks. Taking wing, feather, hollow bone, beak, wattle, lesser covert, proventriculus. Winging, feathering, hollowing bone, beaking, wattling, coverting less, proventriculating, waving goodbye to the ground, its leaves and trees, summer stone outhouses. Climbing the currents up to the point where ground drops, leaving wind and wingtip. Looping like a high jumper freed from gravity through and past the phone line, staging posts. Leaving blank traces where eyes and their proxies can't keep up with speed of motion. Dipping one last time out of the sky into the window's arch, into the outhouse gloom. Diving in a blur of wing and motion up through the air to where it masses into sky. Fizzing with restlessness, driving feathered bodies to find an outlet in murmuration. To turn, to season things seen with the salt of thought at the risk of rendering the earth ungiving. To summer anywhere but here is where summering happens, in the rustle of the trees, their liquid shade, and weeds making clumped tufts of the rubble. To turn away from the watching eyes, to find a way to turn that doesn't end up back at the point the movement started from. To turn back, if that's the turning that needs doing, to plunge into the heart of the ripple so its motion can begin again. To back away from watchers, to remain unread, unmapped, unowned. To take off from this spot and leave its cloud of eyes behind. To mutter instructions to accompany the movement, to sound out the cycle of motion and rest. To pace a route that isn't made for tracing the eyes that turn it into shapes to read a reading wrong. To make space by gradually increasing the radius of the ripple, to ripple out, to space out, coming loose for short bursts of moments from the clutch of earth, stone, water. To outmaneuver, to work with hands out in the air and to move with this working through the air among the earth and stone and water. To outfox the farmyard watchers, to shrug off their mystifying cloak of overlaying words. Turning, finding ways to pick through the pebbles and make way to the water without giving way. Flowing along with the water and its living song as far as the body can. Feeling surface tension crack into bubble, bubble over skin, skim tense surface. Skimming the roughed up water top with thrilled fingers, singing. Sharing space and sound, babble and blatter with the birds and water. Drawing a curtain of sound around a sparkling space to keep eyes out. Thank you.